Chandan, tell us when you turn the webinar on, because we won't know.
Says you're in a
Started,
practice session.
started the webinar.
Okay, hello everybody. I am really excited to be here with you today. We have got just an extraordinary opportunity today to talk to you with the executive leadership of the Crowdfunding Professional Association. I'm honored to serve as the treasurer, and no one is happier than this group that my tenure as the CfPA president has passed. I served last year in that role as a volunteer, and I've been replaced by Brian Christie, who is a visionary leader who's doing a great job, and we're grateful for him. But we're going to let me just take a couple of minutes here as we get organized to share a couple of things with you in preparation. Whoops, that's not where I wanted to go. Let's see if I can do this right. I want to acknowledge and thank our sponsors. Purpose Rounds is transforming customers and communities into owners and advocates. They really have been a tremendous support to the SuperCrowd, and we are really grateful for their sponsorship. And I invite you to visit purposerounds.com. Halyard Compliance is our other impact sponsor, and we're so grateful for them. If you are running a crowdfunding campaign and need legal advice, this is a potential solution for you. If you are running a portal, and I know there are literally about 100 portals out there, Halyard Compliance helps the portal operator stay in the good graces of the regulators. We're grateful also for our supporting co-hosts, including Rotary, Move the Needle with Rob Kaplan, the American Independent Business Alliance, Ridgecrest Herbals, Funding Hope, and Superpowers for Good. And then we're grateful for the CfPA, among other co-hosts. CfPA is a great partner for us on our events. The Gig Group, Dakin Capital, Jenny Kassan Group. Jenny's here today. We're excited, grateful for her. The Mashup Labs, Crowdfund Better, the Brainchild Company, Community Vision Solutions, Crowdfund Main Street, and CrowdMax Publishing are all co-hosts for us and help us organize and plan our events. I want to thank and acknowledge Chandan, who's here with us today. Chandan is really plays a key role. We call him our technology event manager, but he's just an extraordinary contributor to our work. I want to just remind everyone that, we talk about investing stuff today, but you shouldn't think of this as investment advice. Think of this as educational material that will help you better understand how to invest. But ultimately, if you want or need investment advice, I invite you to get that elsewhere. I want to highlight something that we're doing, that we're having fun with this. We take roll every month, those who attend via Zoom. And if you're not attending via Zoom, let me encourage you to visit the supercrowd.com, and you can register still for the Zoom participation in this webinar. We're streaming this live on YouTube all around, so you may be watching this on YouTube, and that's great. We're happy to have you. But if you join the Zoom, your attendance is recorded. And the great thing about that is that we will give you $100 after you attend 10 events. We'll give you that as a reimbursement for a crowdfunding investment of $100. So this is a great way to learn about impact investing via crowdfunding and to have it funded. So come get educated, get smart, and earn $100. Every month, the SuperCrowd hosts an informal club called the Impact Cherub Club that we do. We're small angel investors, if you will, right? So we're focused on impact, trying to make a difference in the world. We meet on the third Tuesday at 1 p.m. Typically in March, we're going to meet on the fourth Tuesday because I'll be in Baltimore for the Super Crowd Baltimore. We'll talk about that in a minute. But if you're interested in joining us for the Impact Cherub Club, please visit the Impact Cherub, visit impactcherub.com. And again, as I mentioned, we'll be in Baltimore next month on March 21st. This is an in-person event. We have an extraordinary day planned. Jenny will be there. Scott will be there. Brian, Christie will be there. This is going to be an extraordinary event. We have some of the most prominent Baltimoreans will be there. The head of the Baltimore City Chamber of Commerce will be there. The head of the Baltimore Development Corporation will be there to speak. This is a serious event you don't want to miss if you live in or around Baltimore. And some of the great leadership of the industry will be there. So if this is one, it's worth it making this a day trip. If you've got to travel a little bit from Philly or some of the places not too far away, I encourage you to think seriously about making the time to be at Super Crowd Baltimore. We're also hosting, this is really exciting. We've just barely started to tease this, and so you probably haven't heard about this. I want to make sure this is on your radar. But we're going to host us on our streaming television show. We're going to host Connect Capital doing a live pitch during the show. And so there will be 4 crowdfunding companies that will be pitching. And right now we are accepting the applications. This will be March 28th. It'll be 9 p.m. Eastern, so that's 6 Pacific, prime time. We're expecting a great television audience. If you would like to pitch at this event, I hope you will visit s4g.biz/328, like March 28th, 328 pitch. So visit s4g.biz/328 pitch. If you are interested in pitching at that event, we will be choosing a winner that evening, and the Super Crowd Inc. will invest a little bit of money in that, and what we hope to attract much more from the crowd that night. So please, please, please plan to watch, attend, invest, and if you're raising capital, please apply to pitch. I also want to highlight SuperCrowd 24 coming up on April 17th and 18th. This is a 2-day virtual event. It's super cheap. If you use the code SuperCrowd, you can get in for 50% off. Again, the code SuperCrowd gets you 50% off. Already cheap admission, 2 days. Again, we're expecting Brian Belley, Brian Christie, Jenny Kassan, Scott McIntyre, all to be on the program, and lots of other luminary experts. This is going to be a great event. We hope to see you there. Now, let me introduce our panelists today. Scott McIntyre is the chair of the Crowdfunding Professional Association. It's my pleasure to introduce him. He is a pioneer in edtech, fintech, entertainment, and ag tech since the 90s. Scott has been at the forefront of alternative finance and economic development. His work with the 501c3 Weconomy.us aims to foster prosperity in communities in crisis. Scott has been an advocate for regenerative agriculture for 18 years, particularly the power of industrial hemp to enhance quality of life and economic opportunity for communities of any size. His academic and entrepreneurial achievements, including co-founding the world's first online education platform, underscore his commitment to innovation. Now in his 8th term as chair of the CfPA, Scott continues to shape the future of crowdfunding and economic empowerment. Please join me in welcoming Scott McIntyre. Brian Christie is the president of the CfPA, and Brian is also the CEO at Brainsy, and he is at the forefront of digital innovation, spearheading Brainsy's mission to catalyze 100,000 social media micro networks with unique reward systems. With a rich background in fintech and digital marketing, Brian has been a pivotal figure in various startups, shaping industries with a keen focus on equitable economic opportunities. Holding degrees from Miami University and Georgetown, Brian embodies the spirit of innovation and public service. Please join me in welcoming this remarkable individual, Brian Christie. Jenny Kassan is the vice president of the CfPA, and it's my honor to introduce her as well. With over 25 years of experience as an attorney and advisor, Jenny has been a beacon for mission-driven enterprises, guiding them through values-aligned investment processes and successfully raising significant funds. Not only has she raised $3 million for her own ventures, but Jenny is also the acclaimed author of Raise Capital on Your Own Terms, a testament to her commitment to ethical financing. Holding a JD from Yale, yes, you heard that right, Yale. I'm always amazed. I just love saying those words. And a master's in city and regional planning from UC Berkeley. Jenny's expertise is unparalleled, genuinely. Please join me in welcoming Jenny Kassan, truly one of the OGs of crowdfunding. Brian Belley is the secretary of the CfPA and will rotate into the leadership role of president ultimately, as will Jenny. It's a privilege to introduce him. He's a luminary in the field of startup investment and crowdfunding as the visionary founder of Crowdwise and now the vice president of product at King's Crowd. Brian has profoundly impacted the way we approach startup investing, providing invaluable tools and insights to the community. There's hardly a day that goes by that I don't visit King's Crowd. An angel investor in over 200 startups, his expertise spans a remarkable array of industries. Brian's academic prowess is equally impressive, holding dual MS degrees in aerospace and mechanical engineering from the University of Southern California, where my son went, by the way. Beyond his professional achievements, Brian is dedicated to nurturing future innovators as a board member for Ingenuity NE and the Crowdfunding Professional Association. Please join me in welcoming Brian and this team. Wow, this is just an impressive group, and I am so honored to have them here for this discussion today. I want to just take a moment now and ask Scott to kind of kick things off, if you would, Scott. Could you share the history of the CfPA so that we kind of can frame our discussion?
I'd be happy to share what I remember of it. It's been so long, but yeah, the organization was founded by a group of individuals that I later came to know. I was not founding group. I think Jenny knows these people better than I do, well, at least younger than I do. And but this was a group of very passionate, very community minded. Mostly, financial experts and legal experts that got together to bridge the gap, as we've all seen happen in crowdfunding, from the age of when only rich people could invest in early stage startups to the day now where anybody can invest in early stage startups to a degree, limiting their exposure and risk. And these are areas that we'll talk more about in the conference. But initially, it was very ad hoc. We got together, on a weekly basis. Believe it or not, we held board meetings in those days on a weekly basis and then a monthly basis. And finally, we're now on a bi-monthly basis, I think, or are we still on a monthly basis? In any event, it was a very, very passionate group of people that got together largely over phone calls and occasionally on video calls to plot how we open up the world of investment, the world of startup finance to people who'd thought of it before. So a lot of it was thinking and planning and strategizing. A good amount of it was focused on the live events that we did every year. The conferences that we held in various cities were all in person in those days. Need Zoom. We hadn't had a major force our hand in that regard. But it was awesome. I was really brought in, and I still to this day am not absolutely positive who did, but I think it was Dara Albright who brought me in originally. And I don't know exactly around me or that I would be fit or ready for this type of a challenge. But I thank her to this day. She's a brilliant woman, lives in Atlanta, and a brilliant finance. But some of the other people that were there, I think it's worth pointing out and mentioning some of their names. Scott Purcell was a leader in this space. Vince Molinari, to this day, still lends a lot of power to the community, and he runs a show called FinTech TV. Brian Dangler, an attorney who introduced me to another one of my mentors in the space, Michael Savant. Corin Booker is still quite active with them and always around. Charlie Sidman was a president of the organization for a short time. Sarah Hanks, I think, is the only member of the current leadership that was actually part of the original formation of the CfPA. And of course, we all know Sarah's powers, and she's a wonderful woman. Doug Elinoff, an attorney, was very pivotal in granting in to our needs as an attorney, and we later celebrated him with an award. Ruth Hedges, one of our early founders as well. Ruth has gone on to build quite a career for funding, advise conferences and all kinds of public events. Ryan Fite was chairman in the education committee that I started with working, and he later went on to form a new platform of his own. Woody Neese, obviously a luminary in our field and still contributes greatly to our knowledge and sharing in the community. Brian Korn, Chris Camillo, Joe Bartlett, one of my favorites, known as the godfather of venture capital law. I was for Joe and bringing him into leadership at the CfPA his dying days, and was greatly. And then Darren Marble played a key role along the way. Jason Best obviously was there at the foundation. Sam Guzik took the chair of president for a short while, and our oldest member, Thel Woods, who I always give respect to because he showed up at every single meeting for the longest time. So that's kind of the background. We started out quick and just kept growing. There's been some gaps along the way where people in volunteer roles are hard to find, much less keep. So we've been getting better and better about enlisting people with the heart and soul and endurance to the work we do. So I hope that helps.
That's great. I really appreciate you framing the discussion for us today. The group's been around for about a dozen years now, and it's great to see what's going on. Jenny, I want to jump to you. Could you share your experience in the White House Rose Garden for the Jobs Act signing ceremony and tell us a little bit about what led to your getting invited to do that?
Yes, thank you. So I went to law school, but I did not study securities law at all. I knew nothing about it, but I had worked with a really amazing person named Michael Schuman, Shuman, who was really passionate about supporting small business. And he started to learn about securities law and found out that there are these huge barriers created by securities law that make it very, very difficult for small businesses to raise money. And so he was the first person who told me about this concept of an accredited investor, that if you have a certain level of wealth or income, you have access to far more investment opportunities. I was shocked when I learned that. We called it investment apartheid. It's very unfair, and he said, I think if we could let everyone have the ability to invest in businesses that they love, not just on Wall Street, but businesses in their communities, small businesses, social enterprises, it would be a game changer for our country and our economy. And so he enlisted me to start studying securities law and start to understand, how could we maybe make some changes? So in 2009, I co-founded a nonprofit called Sustainable Economies Law Center with Janelle Orsi. And one of the very first things we did is enlisted some interns to help us write a letter, a petition to the Securities and Exchange Commission asking them to create an exemption that would allow regular folks to invest in any business that they want, as long as there was a cap on the total amount they could invest. And believe it or not, the cap that we suggested was $100 per investor. And so we submitted this petition back in 2010. We spread the word and it got more support comments than the SEC had ever gotten before on any petition ever submitted. But the SEC ignored us. But somehow the word got out, and believe it or not, like Whoopi Goldberg started to promote what we were doing. Congress found out about it, and lo and behold, the White House got interested in it. And, long story short, the legislation was passed, the Jobs Act, in 2012. And because I had been involved from the very beginning, I was invited to the White House signing ceremony. So the legislation that ended up being adopted was incredibly different from what we had originally proposed. And also from the first draft of the legislation, it contained some things that we were a little disappointed by, but it was that first step in making it legal, and not that it wasn't legal before that for people to invest in outside of Wall Street, regular folks, but I had done it. I had many clients who had done it, but it was very onerous. You had to deal with state by state securities compliance. So when that law passed in 2012, the Jobs Act, it included other things as well besides regulation crowdfunding, a lot of good things that reformed a lot of areas of securities law. So really excited to have been working on it for so long.
Yeah, that is really, I think, just a great story. And Jenny, you're really one of the true, OGs of crowdfunding, and we're thrilled to have you here today on the show or in the webinar. And grateful for your leadership at the Crowdfunding Professional Association. And again, you'll be the president next year, serving as the vice president this year. We're grateful for your leadership. Brian, Christie, let me jump to you now. You've had a hand in the development of the CfPA's crowdfunding ecosystem, which is really an extraordinary contribution to the crowdfunding industry as well as the CfPA. Tell us about what that's about.
Yeah, sure, Devin. So, and thanks for inviting me to this event. So, usually when you have an industry, especially one that's a new industry like crowdfunding or regulated investment crowdfunding, as we like to call it, there is a lot of uncertainty that goes with it. It was passed after the Jobs Act, of course. There was a rulemaking process that took a number of years. So the rules, the regulations, how to play the game of crowdfunding, how to get involved. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of sort of knowledge that is sort of contained within the heads of a few people who were sort of driving it, and it's very difficult to disseminate that sort of broadly. So, so the crowdfunding ecosystem is really an online knowledge sharing platform, and it's an attempt to really allow people to interact with expertise of people who really are in the know in the field. Additionally, it's really a chance for people who do have that expertise to share it in one place. So the ecosystem itself is very much like a mashup of LinkedIn, Twitter, Medium, the online yellow pages. Think of TikTok-y sort of features. Think of all these things which people use today to interact and communicate with. And so we've sort of taken all those positive things, what we feel are positive aspects of social media, and put it into sort of one platform where people in the crowdfunding industry can interact and can learn. So if you're a total novice coming in trying to figure things out, you can go and find information that may be helpful. You can pose questions to experts. If you're an expert, you can sort of promote yourself and show off your expertise. If you're a company trying to reach out to others, and you can get listed there as well. So it's really an attempt to serve as sort of this knowledge repository. And the nice thing about it is that when people may be searching on Google or other search engines, they're going to end up often finding information that's referenced on the ecosystem. So that's one of the things we're doing to try and really create this sort of knowledge base that everyone has access to. I see people are asking some Q&A, and some people asking, where do I get information on this or that? Well, a good place to start is the crowdfundingecosystem.com, which you can get to by typing in that URL or going to cfpa.org and then find a link that takes you to the ecosystem. And it really helps to support the mission of CfPA, which we have really sort of a tripod where we're there to educate folks, we're there to advance the industry, and we're there to really advocate on behalf of the industry as it relates to the regulators, sort of the three sort of areas of activities that we're involved with. But yeah, I'd encourage people, it's a free service to get on just to learn some things. So I encourage them to go there and sign up and register to get an account.
Brian, thank you. That's I can't emphasize enough the value of joining that community, and maybe Chandan, you could drop the link to that in the chat. But it's crowdfundingecosystem.com, right, Brian?
Yes.
As we look forward, I want to shift to Mr. Belley. We got two Brians here, and they're both great. But Brian, can you share with us your journey into the crowdfunding space from your experience in aviation and aeronautics and space and all that stuff? And how did you end up in crowdfunding? And what inspired you to contribute to the movement?
Yeah, thanks, Devin. And my story, while it may be unique, I don't think is totally unique among the crowdfunding space. That is one of the amazing things about these regulations, about what this industry is doing, is that it opens up these opportunities both on the entrepreneur founder side as well as the investor side to make it accessible to anyone from any background. So, aerospace degree, but we have people who come from all walks of life, all backgrounds, who are investing and also starting companies and raising capital. So personally, I'm coming at it from the retail investor side, as a non-accredited investor when I was just getting started out. The first company that I actually invested in was probably back in 2014, 2015. I didn't know what regulations were at the time. I didn't know Reg A plus, Reg CF still hadn't really launched until 2016. But I invested in this internet public offering, IPO, little case I, not a initial public offering, in Fundrise. And Fundrise is one of these companies that's been innovating a lot in the crowdfunding real estate space. A lot of people may be familiar with them, but they also opened up investments into their parent company itself to be able to allow everyday investors to be able to invest. I thought that was fascinating, right? As someone who had dabbled a little bit with, public market stocks at the time, but most of my investments were in retirement plans and kind of that type of thing. I thought it was fascinating to be able to get this opportunity to look at a company that's not publicly listed and see if I want to take part in that journey, because that's honestly one of the really exciting things about this. When you invest in these companies and you support them, sure, you can go invest in Amazon or Meta or one of these companies in the public markets, but your funds are just a drop in the bucket. You're going to see the ups and downs of the daily stock price. But when you invest in an early stage company or a pre-IPO company, your dollars are impactful, right? Like they have a lot less capital to work with, so it can be much, much more meaningful. And seeing the investor updates and everything along the way is just something that you got to enjoy that process. You're along for the ride with these companies. Of course, you hear about all these risks where your funds are going to be illiquid, meaning you can't really sell. So, make sure you don't invest with funds that you can't afford to lose. But if you're willing to go on that journey and make some of these long-term investments, you, as an investor, have the opportunity to potentially have your capital appreciate over time, but also to help kind of leave your mark on the world, right? You are voting with your dollars which of these companies that are working on really interesting or innovative spaces you want to support. And by investing in them, it kind of allows that to happen. So, coming at it from that perspective was really my background as a retail investor. Then I actually didn't hear about the Jobs Act. So, Jenny mentioned kind of started the process all the way back in 2010. Jobs Act got signed into law in 2012. Reg CF didn't really actually launch until May 16th of 2016. So there was a long time frame there where they still had to actually figure out how to implement it. I heard about it about a year after that. And this was something where, as someone who was, well, I did an engineer as my day job, really passionate about investing. Like this is what I was doing on nights and weekends. And so I was super excited when I found out about regulation crowdfunding to be able to support some of these startups and small businesses, and ended up actually leaving my prior aerospace career to jump into this industry full time, just to show how much of a believer I am. So that's one of the amazing things as well about the Crowdfunding Professional Association and just the whole industry in general is we have a whole bunch of different stakeholders. There's the investors who are getting access to these different asset classes that have traditionally been more off limits to them. There's the founders and the increased access to capital that this allows and getting backed by a more diverse investor base. And all the other stakeholders in the industry, the platforms, all the attorneys and the lawyers and the marketing agencies. It's a huge ecosystem that we're all really putting our resources together to build. And hopefully, right, the hope is that we're not only going to be improving all these opportunities for these investors and founders, but actually having an impact on the world. So that's why I'm super excited about the space and, living and breathing it every day.
Well, you're really contributing in a meaningful way. Like I say, I there's rarely a day now where I don't visit King's Crowd to look something up. And I talk about it all the time. it's as vital a player in this space as is the Crowdfunding Professional Association. So I'm grateful that you're there and helping to build the community. Brian, Christie, I want to come back to you as president of the CfPA. How do you see the CfPA taking a leadership role in the regulated investment crowdfunding industry this year and then going forward in the long run?
Right. Okay. Well, good question. I think we have a couple different audiences. So one of them, of course, is people who are new to the industry, and then of course we're also one of our audiences, the regulators, because we want to make the industry function better for the participants. And so, so I say as caveat, before I sort of share more, it's an interesting role to head the Crowdfunding Professional Association. You've set up a great foundation, Devin. I've been handed the baton. I'll be handed to Jenny next year, and then she'll later hand it to Brian Belley. But it's one of the few elected sort of roles I've had where you start as a lame duck. So I would say that for my part, a couple of things I really think are important to establish for this year is that I think that crowdfunding, in part because it's a very regulatory heavy sort of process that created it, is something that has been driven, and there's been a lot of participation by lawyers and less by the marketing folks. And sort of as a result of that, I think that the identity and the PR and the marketing around the industry itself needs to sort of coalesce around the language we use. And that's why recently the Crowdfunding Professional Associations Board decided to use and settle on and use the terminology as a best practice, regulated investment crowdfunding. Because the big challenge, I think, for the industry moving forward is that it's too easy to conflate what's happening in the world of rewards crowdfunding and donations crowdfunding versus what's happening in the world of regulated investment crowdfunding. And the other issue with that is that folks who are operating in a regulated environment aren't getting the credit they deserve for going through very careful measures to get licensed, to follow the law in order to make these investments available to people. So the companies have to go through more. So I think that as an industry, one of the big things we really want to try and accomplish this year is to really demarcate ourselves as part of the greater education process of what it means to be part of this regulated industry. Consumers are getting fleeced and losing a lot of money in crypto. People have lost money in platforms, and there are folks who have invested in rewards crowdfunding expecting some sort of gain when the company's been acquired, and they haven't gotten it, and they are told later, well, that was rewards crowdfunding. You didn't have equity. You actually don't get any more than the product that you had built. So in order for the industry to really advance, it needs to get it needs to be appreciated for what it's doing. And so one of the big things I'm hoping that we'll do during this year is to really help to create that marketing and the brand identity around regulated investment crowdfunding, which is what our industry does. In addition to that, because of COVID, a lot of in-person things sort of were disbanded. A lot of potential engagement with the regulators sort of got pulled back. And so now the folks are sort of back on track, hoping that this will be a year that we can start to re-engage with some of the regulatory authorities as well. Because there are a lot of issues that we're learning, that the industry is learning about. And so, I think those are a couple of the key things. And then finally, the last thing is that crowdfunding is not just for startups. Once you have on the lens to interpret the world, and you can see how it can be used, it's something that companies can use to fund a product extension or to fund a spinoff, there's a lot of different ways that this can be applied that I think we want to highlight as well. Beyond that, those would be sort of three things we want to focus on for the year. And then also just preparing things so we can hand the baton off to Jenny next year. And so, and I'll let Jenny speak about the future beyond that.
Fantastic. Well, Brian, you really are doing a great job as the CfPA president and genuinely a visionary. And we're grateful that you're here and picking up the baton, really more from Scott than from me. But um, I'm grateful for an opportunity to serve in that rotation. I want to shift gears just a little bit and jump to you, Jenny, if we could. You've been working on investment crowdfunding really, since before it was a thing, right? Back in 2006. This is a decade before Reg CF was implemented. You were using, things like Reg D 504 to do crowdfunding when no one else was. What do you see? What do you think is working, and what could be working better? And what will it take for the tool to be used by small businesses that need it most?
Yeah. Well, and I do want to mention that, investment crowdfunding was happening even before I got involved in 2006. One of the most famous cases of it, well, first of all, we could say it's been happening forever, right? Communities getting together to fund things that they care about. But under the current legal system, a famous case was Ben and Jerry's back in 1984 when they first started out. It was legal under, there's a federal law called the interstate exemption, and then there was Vermont law that let them raise from Vermont residents. So they raised 750,000, and this was in 1984. So it has been going on for a long time, but it was this state by state slog that you had to deal with. And we still sometimes, I have a client that did use that raised money intrastate in Wyoming recently. So we still use those other rules sometimes when they make sense. But, the great thing about the new law is it does let us do a nationwide offering. We don't have to worry about state by state filings, although I will say that some states do require filings if you happen to be based in that state. But there's a lot of things that are great. It is growing, but it's still a tiny percentage of folks that are investing in these offerings. And I do get a little bit concerned when I see kind of what types of entrepreneurs tend to be raising money using this tool. The whole reason that I worked so hard to get the law passed in the first place was to see massive amounts of investment dollars going into the 99% of businesses that are not high growth tech companies, but are, Main Street type businesses, bricks and mortar businesses that are highly mission driven, all those businesses that make our lives so great every single day, but may not be the next big unicorn. And I feel like the industry, a lot of the bigger players in the industry are really targeting those companies that are trying to be on the unicorn path. And that's kind of a built-in issue to the industry because the way the portals get compensated is a percentage of the raise. So of course, a lot of players in the industry are targeting folks that are raising large amounts of money. And because you can raise a fairly large amount of money and investors can invest a decent amount of money, the regulators are concerned about making sure that investors are protected. And because of that, there's a lot of rules governing how you can go about raising money using this tool. And those rules are really difficult for your typical small business to comply with. I've had so many clients just get so frustrated and angry with me when I tell them, well, you have to provide, professionally prepared financials for this year when you didn't even have any activity. And I'm always telling them, I'm so sorry, but it's not my fault. It's the law. And so, I wish that we had a way to make it more accessible for the typical business that doesn't maybe have the resources to pay for all the costs and deal with all the complexity of using the tool. Sometimes I do wish we had maybe two tiers. a lower tier for smaller amounts that was less onerous to comply with. So even though it is nice to see some growth in the use of the tool, my mission is still to try to make it more accessible for more folks, both on the investor side and the entrepreneur side. And one way that I'm trying to do that right now is by creating a comprehensive place-based ecosystem in a particular place, which it just happens to be Baltimore. That just ended up where we decided to do it. And we've purchased a building there that will be a physical home for our activities that will support entrepreneurs with all of their efforts with getting up on the platform. And we do have a platform called crowdfundbaltimore.com. And then supporting local residents in the Metro Baltimore area to learn about investing and to come to this place to meet the entrepreneurs that are raising money, to get into small groups, to do due diligence, to learn about what it means to be an investor in small local business. Because based on my experience doing this for all these years, I think having a place where people can meet in person and build trust and relationships is the key to really seeing a lot more money move into the kinds of businesses that I am hoping will really benefit from this tool.
No, fantastic, Jenny. Thank you. As someone who's been doing this longer than almost any living human, your insights and perspectives are valuable. So thank you. Scott, I want to come back to you. You have been around since the beginning of the Crowdfunding Professional Association. And I wonder if you would just take a minute and tell us what drew you to crowdfunding and why, after a dozen years, you still volunteer so much time to advance the mission and purpose and what we're doing in the crowdfunding space.
Well, it's a little bit of two things. I would say, Devin, that one of them is kind of divine intervention. How Dara found me, or Dara, I'm just crediting her for that. She's sweet and deserves it. But for whatever reason, I was blessing in itself, because on the self-serving side, I'm an entrepreneur. I've always been an entrepreneur. And had I had the tools that we have available to us now, when I started my journey as an entrepreneur, it would have changed my life, rapidly accelerating, hopefully some of the accomplishments that I've had in that time. But so for me, I saw the improvements that we were shepherding through were things that would have radically helped me. So that was personal. I just wanted to help more entrepreneurs because I saw how difficult it was. But socially and professionally, working with so many silly, impassioned people that I share, affinities with, even beyond just crowd finance, that were willing to volunteer with them would have been their prime earning years, has been incredibly refreshing and motivating, and all the good feelings that you from doing the right thing for people to know. My engine says it's unstable, so I apologize if I'm breaking up. But it wasn't always this easy, having spent 7 years as secretary before I ever advanced into the executive ranks of VP and president, that I did for 4 years. It wasn't as easy as it looks now. I mean, we didn't have the depth in our bench as we do now. We didn't have the structure of this 3-year executive plan that we have now, which is amazing. And I wish we would have had the vision to implement something as brilliant as what it is now. Because having an executive say, I'm willing to commit 3 years of my time as a volunteer, is so amazing as a contribution. It's all to find people that can give that amount of time, much less those that can give and have the expertise that we need on the board. So that is, it's just great to be around good people, I guess, at the end of the day. And so that makes it a lot easier to find the time that we put into. And it's not nearly as bad as Share Limited. You guys do so much work, because I was wearing thin after, that many years, essentially running the organization with only a few people. It definitely wears you down. But the feedback that we get, the smiles we see on people's faces, the breakthroughs, you see these light bulbs go off in people's heads, it's critical. And I think that really, really helped. So I'd say that was the main part of what it is. But, as a volunteer, I'd done volunteer before, and I was busy, and, people have to pay the bills. It's a journey. But my advice is that people pay special attention to knowing themselves better and learning how much more they may have to give, because the rewards of this job for me have been outrageous. I'd have never seen a number of views that I got to see because I was speaking on behalf of the CfPA.
You've helped a
I'd
lot
have
of
never
people
gotten
with
invited to the White House
crowdfunding, but
as we did.
um,
Yeah, it's incredible. So
I'm not sure whose internet got to be problematic.
do we
but
break up?
apparently mine.
No problem. Yeah.
So,
So to sum it all up, blessing. And I recommend that volunteer because it just opens so many doors. So
excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Scott. Jenny, I wonder if we could jump you and ask you to answer Steve Schaff's question. He says, one issue for small business going crowdfunding is many entities don't have a deep network to promote their raise. Any suggestions about how to address this limitation to successful raise?
Yeah, that is a tough one. And I'd love to hear if others have suggestions, because I don't have any kind of magic answer to that. In my experience, it really is a matter of just fully committing to doing as much outreach as possible every single day, getting outside your comfort zone, reaching out to people that you might not even know, but might, the first thing we ask our clients to do is really think about, who is your constituency, who's likely to be excited about what you're doing, who's excited about your mission, and take it beyond just the people attend meetings and events that are in alignment with the mission of your business. Reach out to everyone you can think of and ask for referrals. To me, it is a numbers game. But I'd love to hear if people have other suggestions, because there is no magic bullet.
There is
I'll
a
actually
growing sense. I would just add to this conversation with this observation that purpose and mission connect people outside of their existing network, right? There are a lot of people who are interested in that. So, Scott, what did you want to add?
I was actually going to chime in on very similar. Is the last thing that I had planned to talk about as well today, and that is something that I've really focused on, kind of entering hopefully my professional evolution, and thinking about what I want to do with these last years of the hard work that I know I need to do going forward. And I found a tool called Ikigai, a Japanese philosophy that I found incredibly rewarding to help me focus on what is my purpose in life and how does it sync with what I need to do on a daily basis to pay my bills. So I think Ikigai is something that our listeners hopefully will take a look at. And you can find a link to that on my personal site, which is manifesto.com. And that's AO at the end, not just O, manifestdow.com. But getting back to what Jenny was saying, there are some tools. And I think that, a lot of the science and a lot of the technology that's going to be advancing our trade, including AI and blockchain, I think will help begin to demystify a lot of the hard work that's required to achieve the magic that crowdfunding is supposed to bring. Because it used to be just, like the early days of the internet, just build it and they will come. Well, it's not quite that easy, as we all know now. And I think that tools like another one of our directors, Peter Ostovsky, is building at Raiseway are going to really help people get their head around, wow, this is a job in itself. In fact, it's a job for 3 people, and it's a job for 3 people full time for probably 6 months, in and out, because you have to fulfill your promises as well as taking money. A lot to it, but I think that we're getting better, and we do need help. So if you're going to consider volunteering, CfPA is a good place to start.
Fantastic.
Shameless plug, I know.
Fantastic. Well, I want to bring this to a real crescendo as we wrap up, and let me ask each of you to provide in kind of a lightning round here. 30 seconds each. I want you to offer one tip to either an investor or an entrepreneur to use crowdfunding better. And let's go in this order for no particular reason. Mr. Belley, Mr. Christie, Jenny, and then Scott. 30 seconds each.
Okay. I will kick things off from the investor perspective. I will say, just get started and take your time. I think a lot of people look at this as, I don't know how to evaluate a private company. I don't know what's going to go into this. How long is my money going to be locked up? Start small. be patient. There's a ton of opportunities out there. And because you can invest sometimes $50, $100 per deal, you can start out with just a little bit of money and then improve and increase your commitments over time. So be patient and get started.
Great.
Okay, so I guess you're passing to me. I guess so to the investor, I would say that this allows you to invest sort of in a way that was only available to VCs and high net worth individuals in the past. And when they make those investments, they have sort of a long vision. It's not going to be an investment that you're liquid and you get right away. So if you're coming into an investment, just have the right mindset. You're in it for a handful of years at least. And then to the entrepreneur, I think that Scott had mentioned, I think before, that a lot of people think that you build it and they will come. You may have the greatest thing out there, but you got to get the word out. And so investor acquisition is as much a process as customer acquisition. And the best thing about this is you sort of can get both sometimes. That's sort of the ideal world. But so again, have the right mindset that you're going to do a lot of work to get those investors onto your cap table.
So
All righty, Jenny.
Yeah, so for entrepreneurs, this is really important. Do not use a cookie cutter document off of a portal to be the terms of the investment that you offer to investors. Make sure that you really understand what is it that you're entering into with your investors. You will thank me later if you take the time to really understand what are the legal documents governing your relationship with investors. Crowdfunding seems like this easy thing. You just stick your offering up on the platform and money flows in, but you're entering into a very important legal document. So take the time to make sure you choose the right one.
Okay, Scott, wrap it up. Finish strong.
Those are all amazing results. But just like running a business, it's not just going to be you. You need to build a team. You need to make sure that that's able to, establish your concept on solid footing, and that requires shared purpose. So my advice is to get out of your head, get out of your house, dedicate some time to knowing your neighbors and finding needs that you may share, because there's no better teammate than one that can walk over and say, let's get busy this afternoon. Doing it on the web is a challenge. Face-to-face really, really does help. And then ultimately, as I said before, find a good roadmap and make sure that you understand the implicative decision to go down this road, because there's nothing worse than going out with the best intentions and then disappointing people who put their faith and their money in your pocket. So find a good roadmap and set aside appropriate time to achieve the results with your team. It's critical. You got to share responsibility as well as rewards. So.
Well, everyone, I just want to thank all of you for your participation today. Brian, Jenny, and Scott, you are amazing leaders. Your impact on the world is incredible, and we're grateful for the difference you're making. And I remain confident that the future of crowdfunding is enormous as it becomes a staple part, a traditional part, an integral part of the whole economy, the way that small business is just done. And that I think is the future, when it will represent a marketplace bigger than venture capital and really huge. And that's coming. So thank you all. I want to thank everyone who came today to participate. I want to invite you to visit thesupercrowd.com to check out upcoming events. And with that, we will wrap up and call it a month, and look forward to seeing you next month at the SuperCrowdHour.